I've always been the dependable one, the guy who shows up when no one else does. My name is Ethan Carter, and for years I've carried my family on my back, literally and figuratively. Mom, Linda, Dad, Robert, and especially my younger sister Olivia have relied on me for everything from utility bills to medical expenses, even frivolous luxuries like designer clothes and spa retreats. It wasn't just financial support, it was emotional labor too. Every time they needed something, I was there. But gratitude? That was never part of the deal. The tension had been building for years, but it reached its breaking point during Easter. I drove 3 hours to their house, clutching a bottle of wine in one hand and a basket of handmade chocolate eggs in the other. I'd worn the light blue shirt Mom once complimented me on, the one she said, "brings out your eyes." As I stood on the porch, rehearsing my cheerful greeting in my head, I knocked confidently. But instead of warmth or welcome, her voice cut through the air like ice. "You're not welcome this Easter," she whispered flatly. No hug. No smile. Just those 5 words that hit me harder than any slap ever could. I froze, stunned. My hands tightened around the gifts I'd brought, gifts I thought would bring joy, connection, maybe even appreciation. Instead, they felt useless now, heavy in my grip. Behind her, I heard laughter drifting from inside the house. Glasses clinked together and Olivia's sugary voice rang out. "Honestly, this year feels so peaceful without negativity or drama." Peaceful? Without me? The air seemed to freeze around me as reality crashed down. They weren't joking, they really didn't want me there. Mom glanced behind her nervously before stepping out onto the porch, leaving the door slightly ajar as if I were some kind of intruder. She leaned closer, whispering urgently, "It's better if you didn't come in today." Better for whom? I asked, my voice tight with disbelief. "For everyone," she murmured evasively. I stared at her, searching for any trace of the mother who used to beam with pride whenever I walked into a room. But all I saw was a cold stranger who couldn't even meet my gaze. Inside, Uncle James chuckled loudly, raising his glass. Cheers to real family being together. Real family? Was that what they called themselves now? Something snapped inside me then, a mix of anger, betrayal, and bitter clarity. I pulled out my phone and opened the one-tap app I'd used countless times to manage their utilities. With deliberate precision, I pressed my thumb against the screen. Lights flickered off inside the house. Water stopped running. Wi-Fi disconnected. From within, Olivia's shrill voice pierced the silence. "What happened to the Wi-Fi? Did someone forget to pay again?" I stepped back, meeting my mom's shocked expression with an icy calm. "Happy Easter," I said sharply, then turned and walked away. As I slid behind the wheel of my car, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction blooming amidst the chaos. For the first time in years, I wasn't playing the role of the dutiful son. I was done being their personal ATM, their silent martyr. And as I drove away, watching the house grow smaller in my rearview mirror, I realized something profound. Sometimes the only way to heal is to burn the bridge that's been crushing you all along. The moment I drove away from the house, I felt a strange mix of exhilaration and dread. Exhilaration because for the first time in years, I wasn't bending over backward to please them. Dread because I knew this was only the beginning, they wouldn't let it go that easily. As I rounded the corner, my headlights caught a glimpse of Olivia standing on the porch, her phone raised like a weapon. She shouted something I couldn't hear through the closed windows of my car, but I didn't need to. Her expression said it all: anger, disbelief, betrayal. For once, she wasn't the center of attention, and that clearly infuriated her. I rolled down my window just enough to say, "Enjoy Easter," then sped off into the night. Behind me, the house grew darker as the backup generator failed to kick in. No lights, no water, no Wi-Fi. It was chaos and I had caused it. But the real storm began when I got home. My phone buzzed incessantly, vibrating so hard it almost slipped off the table. First it was Mom, then Dad, then Olivia, and finally Uncle James. Each call came with escalating urgency, their voices growing shriller with every attempt. "Are you crazy?" Olivia screamed when I finally answered one of her calls. "We were about to have lunch." "Call your real family," I replied coolly. "Maybe they'll pay the bills next month." Silence followed, broken only by her sharp intake of breath. Then she exploded. "You think this makes you powerful? Cutting us off just to prove some stupid point?" "No," I said, my voice steady. "This makes me free." She sputtered, unable to form coherent sentences before hanging up abruptly. But that wasn't the end. Over the next few hours, texts poured in, accusations, threats, guilt trips disguised as love. Dad sent a curt message: "Fix this now. You're being immature." Mom wrote, "How could you do this to your own family?" Even Uncle James chimed in, "Ethan, this isn't who we raised you to be." Their words bounced off me like raindrops on glass. I deleted most of the messages without responding, saving only Olivia's rant for entertainment value later. A week passed, and just when I thought they'd exhausted their arsenal, Olivia struck back in true dramatic fashion. She posted an Instagram story, a black background with white text, classic passive-aggressive drama dump. "Some people will leave you when you need them most. They think they're untouchable, but God sees everything. Karma is real. The post went viral within our extended family circle. Comments flooded in, many siding with Olivia, others speculating about what could have possibly driven me to such extremes. She's right, Aunt Patricia commented under the post. Family should always come first. Wow, Ethan must have lost his mind, someone else added. Reading those comments felt surreal. Here I was, the villain in their narrative, while they conveniently ignored years of exploitation. Still, the pressure mounted. Friends started texting me asking if everything was okay. Even Rachel, the girl I'd met at the bookstore, messaged me cautiously, "Hey, are you alright?" People are talking. Instead of crumbling, I doubled down. I emailed Olivia directly, attaching the forms to transfer the car lease out of my name. The subject line read, "You're welcome. Deadline, 14 days. Her response came swiftly, a barrage of insults accusing me of being selfish, cruel, and heartless. But beneath her rage, I detected desperation. Without me footing the bill, they were scrambling to cover their expenses. Then came the piece de resistance, a voicemail from Dad. His tone was unusually pleading, almost desperate. "Ethan, listen, things have gotten out of hand. Your mom's upset, Olivia's talking about selling her car, and the utilities company called today. We can't keep ignoring this. Please come back and fix it. We're family." I listened to the message twice, then deleted it. Fix it? After everything they'd done, they still expected me to clean up their messes. That's when I realized something profound. Their anger wasn't about betrayal or hurt feelings. It was about losing control. For years, they'd treated me like a utility company, taking whatever they needed without question. Now that I'd cut them off, they were panicking. And honestly, felt good. 2 hours later, the knock came. Not a polite tap, but an urgent pounding that echoed through my apartment. I knew who it was before I even opened the door. Mom, Dad, and Olivia standing there like a storm cloud ready to burst. Olivia's face was red, her fists clenched at her sides. Mom looked pale but determined, while Dad hovered behind them, his arms crossed awkwardly. "Open the door right now," Olivia demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass, "or we're calling the police." I didn't move immediately. Instead, I leaned against the doorway, arms folded, watching them with a calm detachment that seemed to infuriate her further. "If any of you raise your voice," I said evenly, "I'm calling the cops myself." That silenced them for a moment, but only briefly. They pushed past me into the living room, their anger palpable in the air. Olivia started first, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "How dare you ruin Easter for everyone?" she spat. "Do you know what it's like to explain to a 5-year-old why the bathroom doesn't flush? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" I raised an eyebrow, letting her rant play out. When she paused for breath, I replied coolly, "Yeah, just like you explained to them that their aunt and uncle expect me to cover everything." Her mouth dropped open, then snapped shut. She wasn't used to being challenged. Dad stepped forward, trying to take control of the situation. "Look, Ethan, we get it, you're upset. But cutting off utilities? That's extreme. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I repeated, my voice rising slightly for the first time. "Let me show you something." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. On the screen, I displayed the list of transactions I'd meticulously tracked over the past year. "In the last 12 months alone, I've sent $9,800 to cover your expenses. Water, electricity, internet, random Amazon orders, Olivia's business trips that were actually spa retreats in Palm Springs. Does that sound like overreacting to you?" Olivia's face went white as a sheet. "You went through my stuff?" she accused, her voice trembling. "I didn't need to go through anything," I shot back. "The credit card statements came directly to me. Remember the MacBook you bought? Or the Zoom therapy sessions? All charged to my account." Mom gasped audibly, clutching her chest as if she might faint. "Ethan, sweetheart, we didn't realize." "Didn't realize what?" I interrupted, my tone icy. "That I was paying for everything? That you treated me like a walking ATM? Or that you laughed behind my back about how lucky I was to not have kids so all my money could go to you?" Silence fell over the room, thick and suffocating. Even Olivia stopped pacing, her defiant expression faltering under the weight of my words. "You think this makes you powerful?" she finally managed, though her voice lacked its earlier venom. "Cutting us off just to prove some stupid point?" "No," I said firmly. "This isn't about proving a point. This is about setting boundaries. For years I let you use me because I thought it was love. But being used isn't the same as being loved. And I'm done." The tension crackled like static electricity. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Dad cleared his throat nervously. "Okay, fine," he said, attempting to sound reasonable. "We'll figure out the utilities. We'll pay you back for the car lease too. Just fix this, Ethan. Please." "Fix it?" I repeated, incredulous. "You mean fix the fact that you told me I had no place at the table unless I kept paying? Fix the fact that Olivia called me martyr complex guy while spending my money on designer clothes? Fix the fact that Mom said I should be grateful because I don't have kids to spend my money on?" Each accusation hit like a hammer blow, leaving them visibly shaken. Olivia sank onto the couch, her bravado crumbling. "Fine," she muttered bitterly. "What do you want from us?" Here it was, the moment I'd been waiting for. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice steady and commanding. "You'll transfer the car lease off my name within 14 days. You'll stop using my Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon accounts. If you don't, I'll lock everything down permanently. And if Mom ever tries to guilt-trip me again with 'You're our son,' remember this: sons deserve love, not invoices." Olivia stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You'll regret this," she hissed, pointing a finger at me. "You think cutting us off will make you feel better? You'll be alone." "Good," I replied without hesitation. "Alone is better than being drained dry by people who smile when I walk in and stab me in the back when I leave." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard that a picture frame tilted sideways on the wall. Mom lingered for a moment longer, tears streaming down her face. "We raised you better than this," she whispered brokenly. "No," I corrected softly. "You raised me to believe that sacrifice equals love. Turns out it doesn't." When they were gone, I locked the door behind them and exhaled deeply. The confrontation was over, but the ripple effects were just beginning. The silence after the confrontation was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It wasn't oppressive or heavy, it was light, almost weightless. For the first time in years, I woke up without that familiar pressure in my chest, the one whispering, "What will they need from you today?" No more scanning my bank app to check if I had enough left to cover their emergencies. No more fake group chats where Olivia posted memes and everyone ignored my messages. No more guilt-laden holidays where I bought gifts for everyone and got socks in return. I was free. And the quiet was beautiful. It started small, almost imperceptible. I bought a cheap secondhand guitar off Craigslist and began teaching myself chords late at night. At first it sounded like cats fighting, but slowly something clicked. My fingers learned to dance across the strings, and soon I could strum out simple melodies. Music became my escape, a way to channel emotions I hadn't known how to express before. Then came photography. I signed up for a beginner's class because I'd always wanted to try it but never had the time, or the space, to exist for myself. The instructor gave us an assignment: capture something that represents freedom. I wandered around the city for hours until I found it. A lone bird perched on a telephone wire, wings spread as if ready to take flight. That photo now sits framed on my desk, a reminder of what I've reclaimed. Writing came next. Short stories at first, then poetry. Words spilled onto pages like water breaking through a dam. Stories about people who chose themselves, who walked away from toxicity and built new lives. One character, a man named Alex, reminded me a lot of myself. He carried the weight of the world on his shoulders until he realized he didn't have to anymore. Writing Alex's journey helped me process my own. But perhaps the most unexpected part of this new chapter was reconnecting with old friends. Rachel Bennett, someone I'd met briefly in college, reached out after spotting me online. We met for coffee one rainy afternoon, and for the first time in forever, I felt truly seen. "You're different," she said, tilting her head thoughtfully. "Lighter somehow." "I feel lighter," I admitted, stirring sugar into my latte. "For the first time, I'm not carrying everyone else's baggage." She nodded knowingly. Boundaries are hard to set, especially with family. But sometimes walking away is the only way to survive. Her words hit home. I told her everything: the $9,800, the utilities, the Easter showdown, the Instagram drama dump. She listened intently, her expression shifting between shock and admiration. "When did you cut them off?" she asked softly. "A few months ago," I replied. "And honestly, it's been amazing. Hard but amazing." Rachel smiled. "Good. You deserve that peace. People don't realize how much strength it takes to say no, to choose yourself over obligation." That conversation stayed with me long after we parted ways. It was the first time I'd admitted aloud that I'd severed ties with my family, and the first time someone celebrated it instead of judging me. As weeks turned into months, I noticed subtle changes within myself. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. I no longer dreaded checking my bank account. I even started cooking real meals, things like pasta carbonara and roasted vegetables, instead of surviving on cereal and shame. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon Olivia's latest post. Another passive-aggressive rant, this time about how some people abandon their families when they're needed most. Normally, such posts would have sent me spiraling into guilt. But this time, I scrolled past without hesitation. Because here's the thing: I wasn't broken anymore. I was rebuilding, from the ground up, without them. And that was okay. Then came the voicemail. It arrived late one night, the sound of Mom's shaky voice filling my earbuds. "Hi, sweetheart," she began, her tone fragile. I hope you're okay. Olivia's been going through a hard time, and the house has been different without you. I know you're angry and I know we messed up, but you're still our son. We love you. I miss you." I listened to the message twice, letting her words sink in. But instead of guilt or rage, I felt calm, complete. She misses me. They all do. But missing someone isn't the same as respecting them. Loving someone isn't the same as using them. I deleted the voicemail and went back to writing. Tonight's poem was about birds learning to fly solo. About nests that crumble but give birth to wings. It was a crisp autumn morning when I found the letter taped to my apartment door. No return address, just my name scrawled in familiar handwriting. Mom's? My stomach tightened as I peeled it off and opened it inside. The first line hit me like a punch. We raised you better than this. I almost laughed. Better? What did that even mean? Better at swallowing guilt? Better at sacrificing myself until there was nothing left? The last line stung more than I wanted to admit. You'll always be our son even if you've forgotten what that means. For a moment I stared at the words, letting them sink in. Then I folded the letter neatly, walked to the trash can, and dropped it in without a second thought. That was her final attempt, a desperate bid to reel me back into their orbit. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. Not this time. Life had changed so much since Easter. The weight I'd carried for years, the invisible chains of obligation, guilt, and resentment, was finally gone. For the first time, I woke up thinking about what I wanted, not what someone else needed from me. Some days I still expected the phone to ring with another crisis, another demand. But it didn't. The silence wasn't empty, it was full of possibility, space, and freedom. One evening, while browsing through shelves at a local bookstore, I ran into Rachel again. She looked different, lighter, happier, and when she saw me, her face broke into a wide smile. Ethan. Long time no see, she said, pulling me into a quick hug. We ended up grabbing coffee just like last time, but this conversation felt deeper. So, she began, stirring her latte thoughtfully, how are things now? Really? I hesitated, then shrugged. Good. Better than good, actually. I don't think I've ever been this free. She nodded knowingly. Freedom isn't easy, especially when it comes at the cost of relationships. But it's worth it. We talked for hours. About boundaries, healing, and learning to choose yourself over others' expectations. At one point, she leaned forward and asked, do you regret any of it? No, I said firmly. Not cutting them off, not setting boundaries. If anything, I regret not doing it sooner. Rachel smiled softly. That's growth. Realizing you deserve better, and having the courage to take it. As we parted ways, her words stayed with me. Courage. It took courage to walk away, to say no, to choose myself. And now, sitting here weeks later, I realized how far I'd come. Tonight, I lit a candle by the window, put on some soft jazz, and sat down with a book I'd been meaning to finish. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but inside, my apartment was quiet, peaceful. 4 years, I'd lived like a shadow, fading into the background of everyone else's lives. Now, I was the main character in my own story. I thought about the letter from Mom, the voicemail, the Instagram rants, all attempts to make me feel guilty, to drag me back into their chaos. But none of it worked anymore. Because I'd learned something crucial. Peace isn't something others give you. It's something you reclaim. And sometimes reclamation means burning bridges. As I sat there watching the flame flicker against the glass, I exhaled deeply. No one was waiting for me to fail. No one was asking for money or favors. For the first time in forever, I wasn't someone else's backup plan. I was alive, awake, untangled,